welcome into the Stinkin Truth podcast. Mark Schlereth from live from New Orleans, Super Bowl 59, about ready to kick off, and obviously Mike Evans out there in Colorado. Mike, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing great. How's the Big Easy? You having fun down there? New Orleans, great Super Bowl town.
Yeah, we went to dinner last night as a little Fox group, and so that was good. Antoine's, which is, right in Bourbon, right on Bourbon Street, or in that, in that French Quarter area. I don't know if it's right on Bourbon Street, but it was awesome. Oldest family-owned restaurant in the history of the United States. That restaurant, Antoine's, has been open since 1840. And one family has owned Antoine's the entirety of the time. So it's just passed down from generation to generation to generation. And it was, it was Cajun, French, like Louisiana, New Orleans fare. It was awesome.
I mean,
we had a great time.
We freely admit we're not great at math, but that's 185 years.
Yes.
185 years in one family owned?
One family owned.
Wow.
Since 1840. And, you just think about they have the largest wine cellar, above ground wine cellar in the United States, over 25,000 bottles of wine. So it just is it's really a cool restaurant. There's so much. It's just so much kind of culture and history. Yeah. It's such a mixture, it's an absolute, it's just one of those cities. Like if somebody drops you off in the French Quarter in New Orleans and, you're blindfolded, they just dump you there. Within seconds, you know exactly where you are, just by the smells and the feel and the people. And it's really a cool place.
Well, and I'm really glad that the city's having a chance to kind of strut its stuff again after what happened, the tragic events of New Year's Eve. So for them to have a chance to kind of get back and, show that resiliency, show that fight. Yeah. And hey, we're right back here hosting the biggest event there is. And, look at us and everyone's having a good time. So that's great. I am curious. Because here in Denver, we've been, of course, following the Super Bowl, but it just seems to me, and I'd like to get your perception either when you're in New York talking about it or now that you're down in New Orleans, it seems like the buzz around this matchup hasn't been your typical Super Bowl hype week, almost to the point where the NBA maybe getting a little measure of revenge for the NFL saying, we'll take Christmas Day away from you, NBA. Almost seems like the NBA has grabbed the headlines this week.
Yeah, they've definitely broken their news. Obviously, their trade deadline and, what happened with Luka and AD and all that stuff has been big. There's no question about that. So the NBA certainly has, dominated some of the headlines. And, and we're all interested. One of the things that prop bets is, who scores more points? Is it the Kansas City Chiefs offense or Luka in his first game as a Laker? Right. So, there's some stuff going on there. I do think, Mike, there's a measure of Kansas City Chiefs fatigue.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because, these two teams faced off in Super Bowl 57 just 2 years ago, right? So we've got, a history of that matchup, and we've seen that matchup before. And we saw Jalen Hurts really play, one of his best football games we've ever seen him play. And then we saw the late holding call for Kansas City, that essentially sealed the game, salted it away. And, there's been a lot that's been made out of the penalties and all the issues to where Roger Goodell's had to address it. Mm-hmm. But there certainly is a feel of Chiefs fatigue. And I'm right there. I understand it. Like, I'm tired of it too. So, and I'm tired of the winning. And frankly, it's really interesting because I love great execution. And it's funny, I was doing a bunch of I was on the plane just looking at film, looking at the Chiefs' last game against the Buffalo Bills in the AFC Championship, Mike. And right off the bat, in the first touchdown drive, the Chiefs put together a string of probably 8 play action, almost RPO type of plays right off the bat. And it was really interesting from a matchup standpoint because the first one, they motion across into a 2-by-2 formation, and the motion man is Worthy, and he runs the flat. And then I think it was Juju Smith-Schuster just ran a little hook, just hooked up. And the pass is literally, Mahomes catches it, flags it in the running back's belly, and turns and throws it. And it probably takes 1.2 seconds or so. And it's a 3-yard pass, but just that effect of that fake handoff and what it did to the linebackers that actually stepped up and then froze. And so the ball literally traveled 3 yards and it became a 12-yard gain, first down and 10. And then they did it again. And then they did it again. And then they did it again. And a couple of things happened. One, you got no chance to affect Patrick Mahomes as a pass rusher. Ball's out. So that's one, right? They just get the ball out so damn quickly. They matriculated right down the football field with these short passes. And ultimately, there's a level of frustration as a defense because it doesn't matter what you do, you're not going to get there. And, you know, as I was studying it on the plane, I was kind of watching it and breaking it down. I was creating some tapes, you know, for my show today, Breakfast Ball, 8 to 10 Eastern. Check us out. But one of the things I thought to myself is, if I'm Vic Fangio, I'm the defense coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles, I'm going to do exactly what Bruce Arians, Todd Bowles did in the Super Bowl when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers beat the Kansas City Chiefs.
Okay.
And I'm going to play my linebackers from high to low. I'm going to make my linebackers get an extra yard or two, somewhere in that area, maybe close to 2 yards of depth. And I'm basically going to say, Andy Reid, do you have balls enough to run the football? Because one of the things I've always said about Andy is, and of course he's got the best quarterback on the planet, but one of the things I've said, and one of the things I said about that Super Bowl is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers invited the Kansas City Chiefs to run the ball. And it was the hubris of the play caller, Andy Reid, that lost, in my mind, lost them that Super Bowl, because they're basically saying, we'll give you 7-8 yards a pop if you want to take it. But we are going to pressure your quarterback. We're not going to give you those easy plays. So you think about that play in general that I just described, right? The little hook route, right? He throws it within a second. There's 1.2 seconds. It's out. It's a 3-yard catch, but the linebacker already stepped up. And so it's right into this wide window, right on the edge, right? Into the boundary. And what happens? He goes for 12 yards before safety can tackle him. What if that linebacker is 2 yards deeper? Even if he steps up, that pass goes in front of his eyes. It's not behind him. He's not turning around. And now he just, boom, tackle, 3-yard gain. Now what? Right? Now, all of a sudden, you don't have that first down. You got to start stringing plays together. So I just think that I would sit there and say, hey, man, you know who's not going to beat us in the quick passing game? Mahomes. If you're going to win this game, you're going to have to grind it out in a style with which you really don't want to play.
You think Andy Reid learned? Do you think Reid learned from that Super Bowl? Do you think he learned that lesson? Do you think he came away from that going never again?
I do, and I do think that's part of what happened, you know, in the preceding years, as you know, they changed kind of their philosophical approach. Remember, you know, Tyreek Hill and all that kind of right. So, but I still don't think that's where you naturally gravitate to. You naturally gravitate to wanting to throw the ball. And I understand why, because Patrick Mahomes is that good. And I will say this, just watching Kansas City, Mike, and watching the way they execute, like their knowledge from the neck up for all of their players is exceptional. You know what? You don't see guys making mistakes. You see guys understanding where leverage is. You see guys understanding the concept that they're running and the defensive concept that they're running. And I'll just give you a little taste of it. There was a third down, it might have been a fourth down conversion that Kansas City had where they're running, we'll call it just like a little whip route, right? So you come inside and then you whip back to the outside, and it's third down and 2 or 3 or fourth and 2 or 3, whatever it was. And your DB has outside leverage. He's trying to funnel you into the hole players, which is the middle linebacker and the safety. So he's got outside leverage. So the receiver goes hard inside, just hard digging inside, right? And here comes that DB. You know you have a linebacker there, right? You know you have body presence of somebody else. Here's that DB fronting up, getting into the middle of that guy, and that wide receiver puts his foot in the ground, spins back around, and all of a sudden the DB's like off the picture, right? And whoop, reception, first down. And it's a critical moment in the game. And if if the DB, I think it was, I don't remember who it was 31. Is that Rasul Douglas? If he just stays outside leverage on that, just stays outside leverage, because it'll funnel right to the middle linebacker. Patrick Mahomes doesn't throw the ball.
Right.
And now you make him hold it for a second. And then who knows what happened? He still may convert it somewhere else, but at least you make him pull the ball. Maybe you have a chance to sack him. Maybe you have a chance, to hurry him. Maybe he has to throw it away, whatever it is. But because you allowed yourself to lose your leverage position. So there is a wide receiver that knows exactly what he's trying to do and executes it perfectly, and a DB that has an opportunity to use his help. And what does he do? He gets out of a leverage position and lets the wide receiver spin on him, right? A little whip route on him, and beat his ass for a first down, which leads to a touchdown. Like, those are the little things that Kansas City just does, honestly, better than any other team in football.
Is it just because they just have players that are smarter than everybody else, or are they just better coached? Just better coached, all the details, the small details, those game situations. Are they just better coached, or do they just have smarter players than most of the teams they play?
I think they're better coached, and they have a quarterback that knows what he wants, so he can relay it. You and I covered the Broncos when Peyton Manning was in charge.
Yeah.
And one of the stories I always love telling, and this is what they have in Patrick Mahomes. One of the stories I always love telling is, I'm watching blitz pickup, and at the time John Fox is the head coach, right?
I love this story.
And John Fox walks up to me. I'm at practice. John Fox walks up to me. He goes, "Stink," and I go, "Yeah," and he goes, "Blitz pickup," and he goes, now I preface this by saying Peyton is in total control of the entire drill. There's not one coach involved. No coaches are involved. So here's the head coach standing right next to me on the sideline, going, "Hey, listen, we're the least blitz team in football. Nobody blitzes us because Peyton will tear you apart."
Right.
He goes, "Frankly, this is a waste of time." He goes, "But Peyton demands we do it. So you know what we do? We do it." And so Peyton is telling guys, he's sparking out signals, and then all of a sudden, like the slot receiver lines up. He's like 8 inches off the mark, and Peyton stops. No. Then Peyton gets over there and goes, "I want you right here," right? And he goes, "Then I want you," and he's so non-athletic, right? "I want you to run this drill," this big wobbly head, right? And he goes, "I want you right here. I want you to cut it back inside," And it was phenomenal, but the details.
Yeah.
And here's the point being, going back to Kansas City, you've got a guy who has coached this system and continues to have the root and the base of the system, and then some tangential branches off the system, right? And so they're constantly building, constantly creating, constantly manipulating. But you have a quarterback who has run it a million times, and he's got, the security blanket of a guy that's been with him the whole time in Travis Kelce and other guys that really understand the system. And they really do a phenomenal job, I think, of coaching it up and having that consistency, and then having the quarterback that says, "Whoa, I want you right here. You get right here." And you see it all the time, and just, how guys play off the leverage of DBs, how guys play off the scheme of the defense, and then how Patrick Mahomes will throw a guy. He will basically let a wide receiver know where the leverage of the defense is with the placement of the ball.
Yep.
And so he'll throw it on some guy's inside shoulder, and the guy will go, "Oh, right here," and then he'll turn that way, knowing the defensive players on the opposite shoulder is going to tackle him. And it's the difference between being, it being on the 2nd down and 7, being 3rd down and 3, or being a first down. And that ball placement. And those guys read it and go, "Oh, here comes the ball. It's over here. I know that somebody's coming to tackle me from the other side, so I'm going to spin inside and get away from it."
Or if it's low and away, catch it and get down, because you're about ready to get blown up.
Right. Avoid the hit. Like, it's just, it's amazing when you really break it down. And the only way really to do that is, you can't do that on the, the copy. You got to have that coach's film, and you got to really dig into it. And me, man, I'm just a junkie. So I spent 3 hours on the plane just looking at tape.
So
what else am I going to do?
when you brought up blitz pickup, you kind of jogged my my thought on something I wanted to get to, so I'll do it right here. I saw these stats. Jalen Hurts, when pressured versus when he's got a clean pocket throwing, okay? Out of 37 quarterbacks in the NFL, when pressured, he's 37th in success rate, 37th in or 33rd out of 37 in sack rate, and 32nd out of 37 quarterbacks in yards per pass attempt. So, I mean, the numbers, the analytics would suggest if he's pressured, and we know the Chiefs are very good at pressuring quarterbacks. Just ask Josh Allen on fourth in the ball game. Is that a real weakness? Is that a real red flag for Philadelphia and Jalen Hurts?
Yeah, you know how I feel about numbers. I'm not a number fan.
No,
I don't like we used to just stand around the math building at University of Idaho and stuff people in the lockers. Like, yo, you're doing math? Boom, get in there, right? So
wedgie time.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. Maybe you've come to realize this watching this podcast, but I wasn't hanging around the math and science department very often. But you know, one of the issues with that statistic is that when you watch Jalen Hurts play, and all those numbers are true, but that guy holds the ball longer than any other quarterback in football. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that's probably more important than that statistic, and why that statistic to me is a bit misleading, is because if Jalen Hurts doesn't turn the ball over, you know what happens with the Philadelphia Eagles? They win. And so he is a guy that where Patrick Mahomes delivers the ball in like an average of 2.52 seconds or something, Jalen Hurts is holding it for 3.14 seconds. That's what,
eternity.
6/10 of a second more.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is an absolute eternity.
Yeah.
And so what he's doing is he's holding the ball, and if he's not sure or it's not perfect, he knows that they can overcome a sack because of their running game, because of what they've got as offensive weapons. They can throw a bubble screen and push it out there. And they're playing so good defensively that the whole premise of what Jalen Hurts has done this year is, man, just don't turn the ball over. You look at the beginning of the year, they were 2-2 after 4 games, and Jalen Hurts was turning it over. Then they went, 15-1 the rest of the season? And the one loss was a 36-33 game to Washington Commanders, where Jalen Hurts got knocked out of the game in the second drive. So they just know they have a formula for winning. You know, I put this whole thing together on Breakfast Ball today, and it's, you know, I've done this for a couple of weeks now. It's the recipe to beat either the Chiefs or the Eagles, whatever the recipe is, right? So we had a big pot of gumbo, and I added stuff to the pot of gumbo, and it got a little spicy. I'm going to be honest with you.
I saw your eyes; they were they were glistening.
Yeah, I had that, and I got a little watery. But you know, here was my recipe: was 5 big scoops or whatever. Just one. You got to lean on your big guys up front, right? You got to lean on your offensive line. I'm talking about Lane Johnson. I'm talking about, Juergens at the center position. I'm talking about Landon Dickerson, Mailata, and Becton and all those guys. Got to lean into that. You gotta trust those guys to be able to deliver in the biggest game, right? And to control the line of scrimmage. So that's part of what I believe has to happen. The next thing was, it was like 25 heaping scoops of Saquon Barkley. And, the big thing with Saquon, for me, it's kind of a couple different things. You got to get him his attempts. Mm-hmm. He's got to touch the ball. Because Saquon is that guy that if you're getting him those attempts, a couple things happen. One, when you get a bunch of 8-man boxes or heavy boxes, right, the Philadelphia Eagles know how to run. That doesn't deter them. They don't check out of it like a bunch of soft-ass bitches. They actually go, okay, we're going to run it on you. And what ends up happening is, they'll turn the backside free. They'll grab a guy from the backside, get him to the front side in a gap scheme. They'll find a way to get favorable number counts, or at least equal number counts. And when you break that first level of the defense, when you are able to get to the second level of defense, I'm sorry, but there is not one single safety that's going to catch Saquon Barkley. So once he breaks it, man, it's house call, right? And so you get that single high safety in the middle. He breaks to the edge, man. He's gone. And so you've got to give him his touches. If he gets 20 plus touches in the running game, he's going to break at least one, maybe two, and then also get him involved in some screen games and some of
Yeah.
those things, right? And the other thing that does for you, Mike, is when you're, and I'll go back to the NFC Championship game. They have a 4th down and 5 situation, right? Saquon in the backfield, loaded up, single high safety, one-on-one with A.J. Brown down the edge, right? Fake the handoff to Saquon. He gets the blitz pickup. Then it's dime piece down the sideline because A.J. Brown's one-on-one. When you run the ball that effectively, you always, anytime you get a single high safety, you're always going to have access to the outside. Because what happens is you're either playing cover one, which means it's straight man to man, or you're playing a form, a zone, which is cover three, right? Either one of those is what you're playing. And that gives you access to the outside as well. Any vertical route against the cover three is a match man to man situation.
Mhm.
So if you go vertical on that corner, man, he picks you up and he's running with you. So you've got one-on-ones with a safety in the middle of the football field that's really not going to help on those outside throws. So you've got access to throw the guys off. You can throw a hitch. If the guy's pressed, you can throw a go. If the guy's midland, you can go comeback, right? 18-yard comeback. And it's a one-on-one throw down the edge of the football field on the sideline. You can throw a back shoulder fade. You've got all those things at your access, and you've got A.J. Brown, and good things are going to happen to you because, one, you could complete it like they did in the NFC Championship game, or, it could be an incomplete pass. That's not the worst thing that's ever going to happen to you. It could be a PI, and the odds are, you're going to get PI called,
Yep.
on the defense. I mean, it's an offensive game that way. And so there's a lot of good things that can happen to you in those situations. And make no bones about it, Jalen Hurts is he's perfectly capable. And I would say he's probably vastly underrated at throwing that. He just doesn't have as many opportunities simply because Saquon's been so damn good.
I always love doing this with you before we get ready for a big game. So, and it's kind of like the recipe thing, but very simple. Philadelphia Eagles win the Super Bowl if they do what? And give me 2 or 3 of the most important things they have to do. You just listed one of them. Don't stray away from Saquon.
Right. Saquon and that offensive line have got to dominate. You got to control line of scrimmage. That's a big one. So Saquon, I think he's got to have 25 touches, Mike, in the run game, in the pass game, all that kind of stuff. Somewhere in there between 20 and 25. I think that's imperative because if he does, they're going to break 1 or 2. Right. And the other thing that does for you is, keeps Mahomes on the other sideline because you're going to possess the ball. So I think that's a big part of it. And then, it's a couple of a pinch of Jalen Hurts here, a pinch there. Like the frustration of him picking up first downs with his feet.
Mm-hmm.
Quarterback design runs. Got to have 4 or 5 of those. Got to have a couple of scrambles in there. Got to have some one-on-one conversions because people are trying to stop that run. So you get that one-on-one. Just a pinch here and a pinch here and a pinch here. A little bit of Jalen Hurts all over the place. And, to me, that's what he's done exceptionally well this year. It's not about, hey, Jalen being the show. It's about Jalen going, oh, what do I have to do? What way do I have to quarterback for us to win this game? And I go back to Super Bowl 32 with John Elway when Mike Shanahan told John Elway, hey, listen, man, you want to win this game? And John's like, yeah, I want to win this game, right? I mean, I've gone to the Super Bowl 3 times and it hasn't gone well, right? Mm-hmm. Of course I want to win this game. Great, because you're not going to be the MVP. You want to win this game, we have got to make Terrell Davis the focal point of our offense. That's how we're going to win this game. And we had some great, run schemes that we just eviscerated Green Bay in that game. But Jalen Hurts, to me, has been one of the most unselfish players because he's like, what do we got? I just can't turn it over.
Right.
And we win. Okay, I'm good with that. And that's great. Devontae Smith, their wide receiver, came out and go, hey, man, if this is a Saquon, if winning this means Saquon touches it and he carries it and we don't get any I'm fine with that. Mm-hmm. Whatever it takes to win. So I think that's that. And then ultimately the last thing I think you need to do, and Kansas City does such a good job of this. I think Steve Spagnuolo is one of the best I've watched at attacking protection. And what you have to do is you've got to get Jalen Carter one-on-one with the guards for Kansas City, especially the left guard. And that left guard is a guy by the name of Caliendo. And I'm telling you, if you can get Jalen Carter one-on-one with him as many times, and one of the ways you attack protection, and I watched Kansas City do this. Kansas City against Buffalo, you walk up the line of scrimmage and the center points, right? The center goes, okay, we're sliding to the left, and we've got that linebacker, Bolton, right? And so as soon as he points, Bolton goes, all right, I'm going to walk up on the line of scrimmage.
Yep.
So it was really cool because it was early in the game, and they had Chris Jones up against the guard for the Buffalo Bills, and so they're sliding. So essentially, when you slide, it's the center and the guard attack that defensive tackle, and then if that linebacker comes either way, then a guy comes off late. So you start with a double team, you end with a single, but by the time you get off the double, the quarterback is going to have the ball out of his hand, right? So they point right there, 30, whatever his number is, 32, I think, 32. We're sliding to 32, and we'd say, if we're sliding to the left, we say LA 32, or we'd say it's some other city in Los Angeles. We go, you'd go, give me a Malibu 32, right? Whatever.
Right.
So any city, anything out of Hollywood, whatever, anything out of LA, right? And that tells you that's where we're going. So as soon as Kansas City saw it, and this is Spags, he's like, okay, when they point out where they're going, that's where the slide is going. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that guy that they pointed to, and we're going to walk him over and make him stand right, head up over the center. So now what does the center's call if that happens? Mingo, man. So now what do? Now, even though we're not rushing, we're just holding the center in position. Now I got my one-on-one with Chris Jones against your left guard. Guess what?
Yeah.
Chris Jones walked the left guard to the quarterback. Quarterback almost should have thrown an interception.
Remember the play. Yeah.
The City dropped it, right?
Yep.
And that's how you attack protection. Philadelphia has to do the same damn thing, and they've got to get Jalen Carter one-on-one with the left guard of the Kansas City Chiefs, Caliendo, and they have to wreak havoc on Patrick Mahomes doing it.
Chiefs recipe for success.
Listen, Chiefs recipe, I think there's a couple of things. One, I think you've got to stop Saquon. You got to sell out to stop Saquon, and you've got to make Jalen Hurts become a drop back quarterback. Not an RPO quarterback, not a run around quarterback, a pure drop back quarterback. All right. And I think if you do that and you lose, you say that was the best, most efficient way to play the Philadelphia Eagles, and we tip our cap because Jalen Hurts balled out of control. And he did that in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. The only mistake he had, if you remember, he had a fumble, and the Philadelphia Eagles were up 14-7. He had a fumble that got returned by Bolton for a touchdown. And other than that, man, the guy played as clean, as clean as you could play in that particular game. So I think that's a big part of what they have to do. And then ultimately, it's just about that offense executing. If they protect, Patrick Mahomes is going to execute. They are so smart. So all they really have to do is have a plan, because Vic Fangio is going to make you nickel and dime down the football field. He's going to play that too high shell and make you throw it underneath. So I think they got to understand that. I think they've got to play with a little bit more depth at the second level, invite them to run the football, and they've got to stop that quick handoff, that quick play action RPO type of play action passing game, because that's what's been so frustrating, Mike. It's 3-yard passes that become 12-yard gains, and it's consistent, and it just drives a defender, man, as a player. Like I remember playing teams like that did that stuff to us, and you'd be like, hey, third down. So you get off the bench and you walk up, right? And you walk up, and all of a sudden, because you're getting ready to go, you're strapping up your helmet, right? You're going to punt, and we're going to get the ball back. Third down. So you get off the bench, you walk to the sideline, and beep, boom, conversion. Shoot. You walk back down, you sit back down on the bench. Third down, there. You get up again and you snap it up, right? And you're up and down and up and down and up and down. You're like, Lord have mercy. Can we get a stop for the love of, and it gets you to the point where as an offensive player, you start to get anxious.
Yeah.
Like, come on, let's go. I want to get out there. I want to make some plays. And so I think they are probably the most frustrating team in football to play against because they just execute and they don't make mistakes. They don't hurt themselves. And when you do that, man, not only is it frustrating for the defense, but it's really frustrating for the opponent's offense.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, get up, sit down, get up, sit down, get up, sit down. It drives you crazy. And that's why we're all rooting against Kansas City.
Right. Well, I was going to bring up the other factor that a lot of people feel is a key to the Chiefs' success, and that's the officiating. How do you think this game is going to be called? After all of the scrutiny paid attention to the officiating, can you see this being a game where there aren't many flags thrown, that they let them play?
Yeah. I can see it being a game where they let them play, not a lot of flags, and there won't be a discrepancy. It'll be close, four penalties to 3 or 4 to 5, whatever it is. So I think it'll be close that way. And the other thing, like if I was the head official, I'd call my guys into a room and say, hey, listen, guys, here's the deal. Nobody came to watch us officiate our asses off today.
Correct.
Nobody.
Correct.
Nobody wants to see that. If it's egregious, throw the flag. If it's not, let these guys play. Let's let the players today decide the game. So I go back to Super Bowl 57, right? Super Bowl 57, where they give up that holding call on Bradbury at the end of the game. That probably happened 15 times during the course of the game. Mm-hmm. Right. But we're going to call it the very end of the game, which is like, come on, that's ridiculous. So I hope that doesn't happen.
Time for a pick. I've already conceded.
No, we're good.
I've already conceded. I've conceded for you the whole year. Congratulations. Tip of the cap. So this is just a fun pick because you're the champion.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Listen. My mind says Kansas City just because of the way they execute, but screw Kansas City. I hate them with the white hot intensity of 1,000 suns. I'm going Philadelphia in a blowout. Philadelphia 31, Kansas City 20.
Oh, you're just picking with your heart on that one. That is so obvious.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not gonna get fooled. I'm sorry. Until I mean, this is like the slasher movie, right? Until Jason, until Freddy Krueger, until Michael Myers, until they are dead. I'm always going to expect them to rise up again. So I'm going to take the Chiefs. And I got the Chiefs once again, a 1-score game. That's all they do. 27-24.
All right. Hey, listen, for everybody involved in the Stinkin podcast, we appreciate you guys so much. We'll be back with you to wrap it all up next week. For Mike, I am Mark. Thank you so much and enjoy the Super Bowl. And I think I speak for America. Go Eagles.